Hello, genealogists, it's Craig, and this is another day where I provide a book for a discount. This is a special publication of the National Genealogical Society, number 35. It was done in 1970. It's a book authored by Kenneth Scott, a prolific New York author who provided most of his works to the National Genealogical Society. I believe he became a fellow of the National Genealogical Society also. So the book in question is a book that I hardly sell any copies of, and it's really strange, and I think it's just because no one really realizes what it is and how valuable it is to New York research for the time in question. And that book is a hardback number known as Genealogical Data from the New York Postboy, 1743 to 1773. So this covers the period through the war in 1745, and then I can't remember whether that's King George's or Queen Anne's. It's Queen Anne's, I think, but one of those wars. And then the French and Indian War up to just before the American Revolution. So a pre-Revolutionary War look at the world from the eyes of the people living in New York. The New York Weekly Postboy was New York's third newspaper and was established on the 3rd of January 1743 by James Parker. And it will continue on until about the 13th of August of 1773. During its 30 years, the Postboy consisted of 4 pages, with occasional supplementary issues. It ran often on the first page treatises such as subjects as Oriental fables or the culture of silk, so basically not much news there. But then acts of the colonial assemblies were frequently printed and spaces were given to letters directed to the printer. Prices current in New York and inward and outward entries for ships were features of the newspaper. So if I was looking for a ship that might have arrived in New York during this time period, this might be a good place to look. News from London and other European cities was printed, as well as items taken from American newspapers, especially from Boston, Philadelphia, Annapolis, New Haven, Newport, and Charleston. Advertisements, as a rule, took up the 4th page, but by no means were limited to it, and insertions dealt with merchandise and real estate for sale, absconding debtors, runaway slaves, apprentices and indentured servants, eloping wives, and sailings for American or foreign ports, and many other items. Deaths which were recorded here were, as a rule, of the famous or notorious, of merchants, officials, criminals, and victims of shipwreck, Indian attacks, lightning, or acts of violence. Births were rarely noted in the paper unless of unusual nature. The marriages mentioned in the press were of the wealthy and socially prominent. It should be noted that there is comparatively little duplication of genealogical information in the Postboy and such New York papers as the New York Journal and the New York Mercury. There are, of course, many items in the Postboy concerned with New York City and the province of New York. But at the same time, the newspaper culled news from the press of other colonies, so the happenings of all the colonies are represented. In this compilation, there have been designated as dispatches with date and place of origin. More than 5,000 individuals are mentioned in the excerpts from the Postboy, and in very many instances, their age is given. It is hoped that the compilation will be of value for genealogical and historical research, in the words of the author. 5 types of notices stand out among those printed in the newspaper. No marriage notices appeared during the first part of the 30-year period, but they became common during the last third. Of 63 occasions of elopement, a wife leaving her husband, it's noted 30 of them took place between 1753 and 1762. Considering the rather primitive methods of transportation in those days, the wife could not escape very far from her husband's home. In addition to these elopements, there are several instances in which the husband advertised that he would not be responsible for the deaths of his wife, and this was, of course, usual in cases of elopement. There are at least 327 notices of runaway of indentured white servants were printed in the 30-year period, and in addition, there are notices about slaves, both African American and Native American, who escaped from their masters. Notices of the desertion of men from the Army and the Navy were printed from time to time, and they were particularly frequent during the 10-year period from 1753 to 1762, when the French and Indian War was in progress. In this period, 136 men deserted, while during the first 10-year period, 1743 to 1752, the number was only 44. For the last 10-year period, 1763 to 1772, only 10 men were named in the newspaper as deserters. The fifth type of notice of particular interest is the listing, mainly around 1756, of those who had been killed by Indians. These reports were from Maine to Georgia, with Pennsylvania and Virginia having the greatest loss. So that's genealogical data from the New York Post, 1743 to 1773. I'm always interested in looking for the family of Betts in New York, since in the 1820s, my John G. Betts was a commissioner of customs until he got fired. And there are 4 Betts listed in the newspaper. So it's well indexed. It is in chronological order by year and then by date of newspaper. There was something that I'm going to have to research a little bit more because it was unexpected that I would find this here. Here it is. Richard Bennett, Esquire, supposed to be the richest man in America, died last week at Wye River, Queen Anne's County, Maryland, at the age of 83. Colonel Edward Lloyd is sole executor. Philadelphia Dispatch of October 26th and Annapolis Dispatch of October 26th. And it was in the paper 10:30 and 12:18. There actually was also a Joseph Wilson, Wednesday, last sentenced to death in Cecil County, spelled Caecil, County, Maryland, for counterfeiting, from the Annapolis Dispatch. There's all kinds of strange stuff in here that I didn't know about. And I think really the problem with this book is that either it's been around so long that everybody who wanted a copy in the generation that was genealogists when it came out in 1970 got a copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up for a 40% discount, and it will be Post Boy with no hyphen. The New York Post Boy had a hyphen in it, but it'll just be Post Boy 40, and that will last until I can sell 25 copies of it. I have a bunch. So this has been Craig. This has been Just Genealogy, and another day has gone by, and I thank you all very much for continuing to tolerate me. I think maybe it's because if you would tell me what books you'd like me to give for a discount, I won't have to go searching through my warehouse to see what I want to put up for a discount. I can put up what you want for a discount. But if you have an interest in New York research about the 1750 to 1775 time frame, then the genealogical data from the New York Post Boy will probably be of great use to you in your research. Thank you so much.